I keep running into people who have the exact same problem. They are thinking that they could never do like a course or a group program because they're afraid that if they were on a live call and someone asked them a question they couldn't answer, that they would freeze up and nothing would happen. Well, that's probably not going to be a problem. So let me show you 6 ways you should deal with it if someone asks you a question in a live group coaching call that you just can't answer. So I'm going to give you 6 different options. And let me tell you, as I give you these, I'm giving you these from experience because I've done a ton of group calls over the last more than a decade. And it is not unusual to get asked a question that I don't know the answer to right at that moment. So let me take you through some of the processes that I go through when I can't answer that question. And by the way, this is assuming you're the only expert on the call, okay? If you've got another coach, the really easy thing is to go, Bob, and let him answer it, right? So if someone's asked you a question, you can't answer it, you're in a live group call. Okay, so first thing not to do is don't say, I'm clueless. Now, you can do that after you go through some of these other things. First thing, turn around and ask the group what you think. Hey, that's a great question. What do you all think? They'll start talking about it. Somebody will have some information. Somebody will give their opinion. And pretty soon, oftentimes that question gets answered. Second option, ask the person who asked the question what they've considered. Because here's the thing. Oftentimes when someone asks you a question and it's hard enough that you literally cannot think of the answer, they've already gone through a bunch of different options. They've thought through them. And as they talk through those answers, you will oftentimes go, that sounds right to me. And off you go. Now, realize also that in this process, that what's ending up happening is oftentimes this question that you couldn't answer will get answered in the process of other people, not you, answering the question. Realize also, you should not be in a situation where people are asking you things like, what is the GDP of Afghanistan in 2019? It's like factual questions, that's not your job. Your job in a group coaching is to be coaching. And so most of the time people are bringing you, hey, I've got this option or this option, which do you think is best? And so make sure you structure the calls that you're not answering factual questions. You're not showing them exactly what to click on to run this ad in Google or whatever. You are doing more of a giving them feedback on their assignments and the work that they're doing. So there is one other advantage in having either the group answer that question or they explore some of the options that they've gone through, which is this. And this is what I find most of the time when I'm struggling to come up with an answer is that I haven't had time to think about it yet. And watching them go through that process of answering the question, this gives you that 2 minutes to think. And oftentimes that 2 minutes gives you the answer. You're now able to give a very powerful, strong answer to their question. So oftentimes what you're really afraid of is fear. That moment when you just draw a blank, which all of us do. Realize you're not alone in this. All of us have moments where someone asks us a question and I go, I have no clue. And so just give yourself 2 minutes to think about it and your mind goes, oh, hey, I'm not under pressure now. I'll give you the answer. And it gives you the answer and now you can go. And so that process is you're probably going to find the answer inside your own brain during that period of time. Okay, number 3, focus on the principle. So if someone asks you a really specific question, which of these headlines is better? Someone asks you, what should I do if I can't meditate without falling asleep? Whatever it is, your program has a bunch of principles that you have taught them. These are the core foundational principles behind the system that you're teaching them. You can always drop back to the principle. So what's the principle here? And so I actually do this process out loud. I say, so the principle you should consider here is, and then I describe, and then I give them the principle from the program. They've already been through it. They know that principle. And now all you're doing is you're applying that principle to the question. By the way, when you do this, this teaches them how to answer their own questions so they're not as reliant upon you to answer their questions. The other thing it does is it once again cements for them the power of the program that you're teaching them, because it shows them these core principles can basically answer almost any question. And the third thing that this does, I got lots of things, I'm building on things here, is that everyone else who is watching this now is able to apply that principle to their own questions and issues that are going on. So the best answers are always answers to questions that aren't just specifically answering the question for that person, but answering the questions that everyone else in the group has when some of them don't even have that question yet because they haven't faced it, but when they get there, they will face it. You want to give them that background so they can. You can never go wrong focusing on principles. Principles are foundational. They're the things, build the foundation upon which everything's built. You can always drop back to that foundation. Number 4, help them focus on their client. What would serve them the best? This thing oftentimes applies when someone is coming to you and saying, which of these should I choose? If you really can't answer that one because you just don't have an opinion and the principle doesn't apply, you can always drop back and say, okay, what would best serve your client? Talking to them. So for them, their client, what would best serve that client? And helping them think through that process can oftentimes answer. And by the way, you can never go wrong focusing on the client either. 2 things you can't go wrong with: focusing on principles, focusing on the client. Both of those are vital. Okay. Number 5 is really powerful when you have told them all along, this is what's in this program. So this program helps you blank, okay? Then someone asks you a question like, what was the gross national product of Afghanistan in 2019? You can simply say, that's outside of the scope of this program. So if your program teaches them, I don't know, let's say how to create a course and market that course, and they're coming to you with a very specific Facebook advertising question, you say, that's outside of the scope of this course. This course is teaching you how to create this program and how to market to your people. Yes, that is part of the marketing, but that's beyond the scope of this course. This course didn't promise that I would teach you everything you needed to know about Facebook marketing. And so what you're doing here is you're saying there's a container around this course. This is what that container is. You ask questions outside of that container, I may not be able to answer them, or I may choose not to answer them because that choice would require me to teach things that are outside of the scope of this program. That's the next program, or that's this other program that I also recommend that you take on Facebook advertising, for example. Okay, outside of the scope of this program. So you don't have to know everything. No one expects you to know everything. Just what you promised them that you would teach them. So I told you I'm going to teach you how to create your course and how to market it. I did not promise you that I would be able to answer every specific question about Facebook advertising. All right. The final thing, if those other 5 have not worked, the final option is to, recommend that they test it. So if they're asking you, will this work? and you can't answer that question, you can always say, hey, I recommend that you test this. That's a very testable option. And then teach them, hey, test this versus this. And that way they can see. This works best in the ones where people are asking you what would be best kinds of questions. And then the final thing, if all 6 of those things don't work, then you can always say, hey, tell them you'll get back to them. But there's an even better than that. And that is, hey, how about if both you and I go research this and bring it to the next call? So you go do some research, they go do some research. When they come to the next call, you say, hey, what did your research show? If they didn't do that research, you say, okay, I've got an answer, but I'm going to wait for you to do that research too. And so then you wait for them to come and give you the answer, then you give them your answer on top of that. So in this entire process where it's like, hey, what do I do when someone asks me a question that I don't know the answer to? Hey, first off, don't worry. You've set up the format, that container in which your course is being done. You don't have to know the answer to everything. And it's totally acceptable for you to be human, for you to, hey, not be expected to know everything and to just say, sorry, I don't know the answer to that question. Or what do you all think? Or what do you think? Those all can help you in this process of being able to deal with the fear of, I won't be able to answer a question. Therefore, I'm never going to do this incredibly valuable thing, this group coaching program, because I can't answer the specific question. Don't fall into that trap. Don't cheat yourself of the revenue, of the opportunity to scale by group coaching simply because you're afraid of someday getting a question you can't answer. It happens to all of us. Use those 7 different principles I just taught you to be able to answer, and you'll do just fine. What's your thoughts? Let me know in the comments. This is Don Crowther saying, just go do this stuff.